Hi everyone, so it's Teacher Lina, and today I'm actually going to be breaking down for you ballet competition. The ones who got me very early into my dance teaching career knew that I did not like competition. So I never joined one till maybe pandemic. So I started doing competitions actually during pandemic. Then after that, I saw a few benefits and maybe started to think, how can I balance this with everyone's training without harming the dancer's artistry or harming the dancer's technique? Because I wanted to run a school that wasn't just competing. For today, we'll just be discussing the basics of competition. So what to expect, the costs, and maybe the pros and cons of joining a competition, and maybe as a parent, how you can think of your child's training. Maybe does it align to you, does it not align to you? And hopefully it can help you decide as to what path you can take also in your dance journey. Because I think it can work as both, and you don't have to have the competition portion. So that's just the early disclaimer already. So let's start with explaining what a ballet competition is. Because of course, when you think of ballet, you don't think of competition. You think ballet, you think performance, right? So you would have categories. So usually you'd either do a solo, a duet, a group dance. You have even ensemble dances. So they're usually just 1 to 3 minutes long per category. Usually 2.5 is your limit. So each dancer would get the chance to perform on stage. Some categories or some competitions have final rounds. So some don't, some do. There are some that are just you go in and that's your performance, you get scored and then you go out. So that's what you probably are going to expect. And there are some that you would go in the first day and the second day you would go in another day if you get in and you have to pay again. So most of the time I think I would do it for the feedback, because what I like about competitions is after your dance, you would actually get a score sheet, which we're going to show over here. We get different kinds of score sheets where judges put their own comments, but I don't know if they're as valuable if you ask me, but there are times where I find, okay, that's a nice insight that I didn't see, but maybe because each judge only has about 1 minute and 30 seconds to write all their thoughts. And I remember watching Catherine Morgan's take on competitions, actually, which I think you can find on YouTube. She's a very credible dancer who talks about competition. He's been a judge on these things and it's probably really hard. I mean, me myself, I do a little bit of judging while I'm doing competition. The parents probably know this. I'll sit down, I'll write who I know are going to win. Most of the time, I actually get it quite right, which I'm proud. So sometimes I feel like, does it really give good feedback, or is it just a little bit of point of view that we need? I don't know, what are teachers looking for? This is why maybe sometimes I enjoy the GC dance events process more, which is the audition event that we host every year here. And I mean, GC dance does it everywhere else, but it's also because there's a long-term exposure to the kids, and then there's a relationship built during the event. And so when you start getting the scholarships, there's more of a relationship built with the teacher, where the teacher can observe how you really work in class, and it's lesser number of people. Because in competitions like this one this year probably has over 520 plus participants. And I saw the email and then I was so surprised, because how can you at some point as a judge even judge the 100th person and be writing down all your notes? Maybe the best exposure I would say is if a judge knows you. Let's say they've seen you in other competitions and they've seen your growth. I think that's where the plus comes in, especially if you want to be a professional dancer. I think it's nice to get known also and be seen with your art and be okay, this is how she started and then she continues. That being said, I really also do appreciate dancers who don't join competitions and still make it, because those are the people who really go through auditions, rounds and rounds of auditions, because competitions aren't really the end goal, or the only path that a dancer can take. Sometimes I feel 2 competitions to 3 are enough for an extra, just so that you're on stage at least how many times in a year, because the more exposure you get on the stage, the better, because you have to get used to stage lights again. At least that's what you have to expect in a ballet competition. So second, let's talk about the training and your commitment. If you're doing a solo, it's a huge commitment, and there's even the process of just picking your variation. The thing with ballet is that there's already a set dance and we just follow that dance. I think the problem is that you really have to find a teacher who knows these dances. So having had professional experience, we would know, but those who don't will probably just copy paste from the internet. So they'll just watch and then they'll copy, but it's not as easy as that. You really want a teacher who knows how the choreography is, what the story is even, because judges now are quite strict even with the characterization of the characters. So it becomes so much more complicated than just performing the actual dance. Now it not just has to be technically good, it has to be artistically in line also with your character. So if you're doing Princess Florine, you have to be very soft and you have to be very like Princess Florine. And if you're doing like Silver Fair, you have to be more lively with the extra heads. And then you always have to be telling a story with your technique. Next is on top of your training, now you would have to have your private lessons. So of course you have your group classes and we have your private lessons. At least here in the studio, we really have like around 1 to 3 extra hours per week. Some girls probably do around 6 hours a week of private training on top of their regular lessons. And adults also do this right now actually, because we have some adults who like to go through the competitions. And then on top of this, you have to have extra strengthening, conditioning work, and you also have to probably have therapy work, because especially if you're the older group of dancers, like the senior dancers of the girls, you'd be on point all the time. And I think that's quite heavy on a single leg, especially if you keep dancing the same variation over and over again. One leg is more stressed than the other. Especially now, I'm going into a competition next week. I know that the last 2 weeks, it's so important that you get the artistry more in, you just get the consistency of the dances, and they're going to be so tired of it at this point, because for us, for example, we started rehearsing around May even, like they already knew what they were going to dance, and some of them have been doing some of their dances even a year early on already. Again, dancing one dance again and again and again and again every day or every other day, it's really going to get tiring. So then let's talk about types of competition. At least for myself, I want to join the competitions that matter. I don't want to just join a competition for the sake of joining one. I often see there's so much overuse and injury that come with it, because when you're just dancing for fun and not thinking about like all the technique, you don't realize how much technique it requires to even dance the variation. And this is where the problem, I think, for me comes in, is that they make the dances too hard, too many jumps, too many exciting things that eventually injure the dancer. And then the parent just accepts it like, yeah, it's part of it, because the teacher says it's part of it. But I don't think it's normal for a child to have that much knee pain, back pain, ankle pain. At some point, you have to think, what am I doing wrong? And that's where I don't like recreational competitions. I want to do it the right way, even if it's slow. Because I think with proper competitions, well, they really try at least to emphasize like proper use of technique. And of course, their judging system is closer to what we know as professional dancers. So you do have to choose competitions where the judges also are dancers, so have professional experience. You just have to look at the names of their schools. There are competitions that are really just for competition's sake, and there are competitions that are really emphasizing proper technique, proper artistry, so you would know where to look also as a parent. Talk about the philosophy of this school, because I think it matters. There are competition-focused schools, so these are schools where their curriculum is really actually just geared to competition. And there is actually a difference between competition dancing and schools that have pre-professional dancing. You will see the difference in their dancing. So there's a way some competition school dance that, oh, it's kind of scary, especially in Asia. I'm not sure about Europe. I've watched European competitions. They're so relaxed compared to Asian ones. Asian ones are sometimes really scary. And I don't know, I find it scary more than artistic, because a real like artistic dancer can kind of captivate more of an emotion than is. And then of course there are recreational schools, so it depends on your dance school. I feel like we're in between right now, trying to be more competitive, and then we're also being how do you call this, like doing more of like a pre-professional kind of thing with our studio. We try to balance both, and then maybe we do around 2 or 3 competitions a year, depending on the student, because some students do want to compete a little bit more, so we have like a few more competitions that some students can join. How much does it really cost to join a competition? Because I think this is where parents get the most surprised. Okay, so let's talk about, let's break it down. So their choreographer fees. You definitely need to pay for choreographer fees if you're going to do contemporary, and of course ballet, both have choreography fees. And then you have your private coaching. Choreo fees range between 200 to 300 maybe 400 USD sometimes. I'm gonna put this in US dollars, but maybe 10K pesos, something like that. 15, 20K is quite normal. Private coaching, it depends on your teachers. Sometimes they'll give discounts if it's like a lot of classes, but personally, I think it's normal. Like here, maybe like 30 to 50 USD. Depends. Some people charge around 120 an hour. I think more US price is like 120 to 200 USD per hour. And then you have your costume fees, which would cost probably between, okay, let's say minimum is 200 US dollars. 250 to 200, 250, 300, sometimes even 4 to 500 USD, depending on where you made it. I've seen costumes that are over 2,000 USD. So it depends on where you're getting your costume made and how nice you want it to be. Especially if it's custom made. Then you have your entry fees, won't go down $100 probably. 120, 200 USD. Then, okay, let's say you consider the travel cost. If you're not in the country, you'd have to pay for the food, hotel of the dancer, the parent, even the teacher. And then you have your extras, like your makeup, your photos and your videos usually are not included in this cost. And then you also have to consider the therapy that you need probably. So you need your studio rental fees, that's the last. Then I think this is something parents forget to take into account. And if you're a teacher also, maybe you want to think about this, but you need to have your teacher's fee if you're going to be you need to be settling a teacher's fee if you'll have your teacher with you, and your teacher's flight and accommodation if you're going to be bringing them abroad with you, because you can have the option of not having your teacher, and that's completely fine. Some teachers are comfortable with it, some are not. Some would really love to go, but we understand, there are some expenses that it's really difficult to cover. But let's say you do need to still have, on top of the travel fees and your accommodation fees of your teacher, you do have to give them a per diem. So you do have to give them like a daily fee for being there. And that one depends per teacher, especially if your teacher is like a senior teacher or a teacher who's like the owner of the school. It depends. Or you just have like a regular teacher, which will be going with you. And that would cover things like performance, taking notes with judges, and also watching your student. Can also give like feedback, comfort also to the student. It does matter if you, maybe you don't think it matters, but having your teacher there, it matters quite a lot. Even from the start of the performance to the end, we're really there for more emotional support, and you'll be surprised how much emotions go through a dancer backstage. I've had dancers cry, say sorry, I'm so sorry teacher, everything. It's like whirlwind. So it really depends maybe per dancer, but maybe the dancer who's a little bit more used to not having their teacher is okay. But while they're young, I would say it's really better to have your teacher. And then maybe as they get older, they're more resilient, they can be on their own. And let's allot around 300 to 600 USD for that, like depending on how long the competition is. But most of the time, you'd probably have around $2,000 to $5,000 total spending per competition. Plus, if you were on point shoes and you were a senior dancer, you would probably have to expect around 3 to 4 pairs a month of point shoes. So if you're prepping for a competition quite a long time, that's an extra added maybe 300 US dollars a month. This is where maybe I feel like competitions become a con compared to doing audition work or video work or just doing a summer intensive, because I feel like it's so costly to do a competition, and now you see the But I feel like the pros probably would be, well, the growth is really fast, and sometimes it's really tempting to join a lot of competitions because of it. But and it also builds confidence, like on stage, off stage. It builds stage presence also in the studio, which I really love. It's also a great way to kind of network. So sometimes the girls have friends who they met in other competitions, which I really like, because they meet their competition buddies and then they become friends, which is really nice. At least for me, I like to goal set. So it's nice to see the strength of my dancer. And it's also nice to see them on stage. So I feel like this is where I get to know the dancer better. Because at the end of the day, you're building a relationship with your teacher. So another pro is that I feel like I get closer to the ones I compete with also, just because I see them on stage more. So I see them better, I see them in a better light, I get to know them, I get to know like their eating habits, everything. I know their eating habits until their like cycle even. I even know like what they eat, what they don't like, their allergies. At some point, it's like you're really like their parent. Cons, well, first is the financial cost, obviously. Then, of course, there's the risk of like burning out or having an injury. So overworking. I think that happens quite often if you're not very careful as a teacher, because I don't personally have loads of situations like that. Sometimes I feel like it could be toxic if a person is over competitive. This is where the school culture, I feel like, matters, because I do remind the dancers that you have to be supporting each other. You're on the same team. But I do think that some people can be toxic in competitions. I've heard incidents of like people cutting ribbons, people wetting people's shoes, or like people stealing your costumes. So you have to be really careful. It is a competition after all. Sometimes judging can be really confusing and disappointing, and a lot of the dancers will be able to relate to it. The dancer you felt like was the best didn't win, because dance is so subjective. The judging is subjective. Like, what if they watch it later and then they decided to score like higher because you were less tired? You know, like there's situations like that. So I don't know. This is why I don't take competitions seriously. Like, I take them seriously to a point where it's like, of course I want to place well. Of course I want my girls to do well. But I don't really take the scoring too seriously. If you danced your best, you'll be known for that. So just dance your best. If you put out good quality students as a teacher, then you'll just be known for that. Probably last con would be how the day is like in a competition. If I will walk you through a whole day of competition, it is terrible. You probably start at 8 a.m., so it means you have to wake up at 6 or 5 a.m. And you probably will end at 9 p.m. So if you are planning to do a competition, you have to expect all 2-3 days. You have to be there the whole day. There's no more time for eating, nothing. Just plan your meals inside. It's very common because it's very expensive to rent the theater for a whole day. So they'll probably just sit you in the lobby and you won't have any more time to prep except like that time. Should you do a competition? It's a great tool for growth, but when you just think of getting a medal and then you don't get it, it just really frustrates some dancers. And there's a lot that the student can learn, but this is where the teacher, I think, is important, because I really have had to walk through students to tell them that you're a great dancer. We need to work on certain things, but it doesn't mean that you didn't place in this competition, you're not good. Again, it is subjective, and you will meet better people. And I think it humbles you sometimes to be in a competition, because there will be better people all the time. Better teachers also, or I don't know, better dancers or different dancers. And you have to expect that. I mean, you're going into a competition, so you have to expect everything, but you have to also believe in the quality of the work you're putting out. So I think the best reason to compete would be for the love of performing, instead of for the love of competing, but more for the love of wanting to grow more as a person, not just as a dancer. I think each time my girls go through a competition, one, they become more resilient to different kinds of results. Two, they become a bit smarter. So we do try to analyze what they did in the past competition that didn't work as to what they can do moving forward, because it's nice to kind of see it for yourself sometimes, and sometimes they don't see till they're on stage. If you're a dancer who's watching this maybe going through a competition, I'd love to hear your own experiences. I mean, it would be nice for parents to read their own, read like experiences of other people. And if you're a competition kid, did you like it? Because there are some people who love it. And if you're a competition parent, if you have your own opinions maybe about it, what was your surprise, or what are your regrets? I'd love to hear them. So if you have any, just share them in the comment section. I've been reading some of the new comments about point shoes, which I love, by the way, so I hope I can see some about competitions as well. And if you're a parent looking into joining a dance competition, this is everything I can do in maybe the 30 minutes that I've been talking here, which might be compiled into lesser time, but let's see. If it's long, I hope that you enjoyed it and you learned something new about competition. So yeah, don't forget to like this video, and hope that I can talk about more things like this too. So thank you.